In the previous video, we talked about IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, but the problem was that since Industrial Revolution, the countries which were in the global north, they were like more developed, okay, and they were responsible for polluting the environment. They had a bigger share of their contribution to increasing the carbon emission, right? So what a methodology should be there so that all the countries can come on a common consensus, okay? So seeing that in 1992 United Nations Convention on Environmental Development, there was a meeting held, also known as Earth Summit, in Rio de Janeiro, okay? Now in this meeting 21 agenda was decided and 3 conventions were adopted. The first convention was Convention on Biodiversity, second was United Nations Framework on Convention on Climate Change, and the third was United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification. Let's see first the shortest one, whose COP14, that is Conference of Parties 14, was recently held in Gurgaon, okay, and today is the closing ceremony, that is 13th of September, okay. Now 12 million hectares of arable land converts to infertile land, okay, non-arable land. This figure is so high, still lots of people are not or are less concerned about this desertification growth. This will definitely lead to food insecurity, which will lead to poverty and hunger. Africa and Asia is on the focus on UNCCT, okay. Now the other is Convention on Biodiversity. It has 3 basic agenda: conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of biodiversity, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits among the locals, right? Let's understand the CBD deeply. If you'll see, the global south is rich in biodiversity, whereas the global north is rich in technology. There has been increased case of biopiracy, where the north exploits the south, so much so that due to overuse of these flora or fauna, they are on the verge of extinction, okay. So there are many species which have got extinct due to increased trade, and hence we need to conserve biodiversity so that our future can also reap the benefits. We need to have a sustainable use of biodiversity. It's not that we keep on the trade and all the flora and fauna gets extinct. Third is fair and equitable sharing of benefits. Let's see this. Now in Kalahari Desert and also in South Africa, there is a cactus known as Hoodia gordoni cactus. Now it has a special gene known as appetite suppressant, which has appetite suppressant properties when consumed. It was used by the warriors, okay, it was chewed by the warriors, and it helped them fight the appetite, fight the hunger. Now this can also, this company, that is British MNC, it patented this particular thing, and it used it for fat reduction, okay. It got so much profit that it started gaining billions of dollars, but the profits was not shared by the locals. Okay, so that is what equitable sharing of benefits with all, okay, arising from the use of biodiversity, so that the locals can also reap the benefits. So much so is the trading happening, and so much so is the plucking of these cactus, that this has to be put into sites, right? The next is National Biodiversity Authority, which is also closely related to CBD. National Biodiversity Authority is a statutory body formed in 2003, established by Biodiversity Act 2002, and India joined the CBD in 1992. It is a regulatory and advisory function on conservation, sustainable use of biodiversity, and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the use of biodiversity, because India had joined CBD in 1992. Okay. Apart from that, apart from advising the government, it also advises the state government for setting up the biodiversity heritage sites. Similar to this is geographical indicators, where handicraft, plant, cuisine, local community is helped by giving them special status to handicraft, plant, and cuisine. So much so that for 20 years they would have exclusive right, or for the matter, if it's a company, for 20 years they can use the product or the process. Okay, and no other company can use this for next 20 years. Okay, because that company has invested a lot in research and development, and hence has an exclusive right for marketing. After 20 years, this goes off patent and it goes generic. But exception is the drug. Whenever it causes epidemic, the government can use it. Okay, so
next is UNFCCC, United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change. Now, it's an international environment treaty with objective to stabilize the greenhouse gas concentration in atmosphere that would prevent the dangerous and anthropogenic interference, right? It calls for a legally non-binding, no enforcement mechanism is there. Okay. Now, some of the annual climate change conferences were held as Conference of Parties. COP1 was held in 1995 in Berlin. Okay, although the UNCED, that is Earth Summit, was held in 1992. So it provides a framework so that all the parties, the developed countries, the developing countries, the underdeveloped countries, can sit together, and that is what is a Conference of Parties, right? 2 in 1996 in Geneva and 3 in 1997 in Kyoto. Among the 3 conferences of parties which were held in 1995, 6 and 7, the third one, held in 1997 in Kyoto, was a successful climate change conference because it led to a consensus building, and it led to enforcement of legally binding obligation. Okay, it said that since the industrialized nations, they have a long history of emitting the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide in atmosphere since 150 years. Okay, they have been emitting the greenhouse gases since industrial revolution. So these countries have more responsibility to cut short their carbon emission. Okay, so the principle in Kyoto Protocol, the adopted principle was CBDR, that is common but differentiated responsibility. Okay, now CBDR said that the countries will be divided into 2 groups. First is the Annexure 1 countries, which are the countries which had history of industrialization. Okay, the second was non-annexure countries. Annexure 1, they had the compulsory obligation to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. On the other hand, the non-annexure countries, they didn't had the obligation, but they need to be vigilant in adopting the greenhouse, the green and clean energy. Okay, so what was the mechanism by which these countries could reduce their emission? First, it was decided that the target would be to achieve the 1990 level, to reduce the greenhouse emission 5.2% of their 1990 level. Okay, so what was the mechanism? The mechanism was, after deciding what is the target, a mechanism developed was carbon trading. Okay, now carbon trading said that, first of all, capping of the carbon emission per country would be decided. The emission would be capped. If a country exceeds its limit, it breaches its limit, it would be allowed to trade the Kyoto points with other countries who has emitted carbon well below the capped amount. Okay, so by paying money. So it was criticized because it was deviating from target, but still overall Earth's emission was reducing. Okay, but this target, this trading of carbon emission would only be between Annexure 1 countries. The second is offset trading. It said that if there are like no countries which is below the which has emitted below the capped amount, what the Annexure 1 countries can do, it can either go for CDM, that is Clean Development Mechanism, or it can go for GI, that is Joint Initiative. CDM says that the developed countries, the Annexure 1 countries, can invest in clean energy projects of non-Annexure countries, or via Joint Initiative it can invest in some clean energy projects or clean projects, for example even afforestation, in another Annexure 1 country. So that's all about carbon trading. Now let's see what's the status. In 1997, although the Kyoto Protocol was adopted, it was not ratified. In 2001, the Bush came into power, but he was from Republican Party, and the normal history of Republican Party is that they don't believe that there is a climate change happening. Okay, they say these climate change conferences, this is anti-development and anti-West. In 2001, 178 countries adopted, big boost. In 2004, Russia ratified, America joined, and in 2005 it took effect. Okay, but in 2011 Canada denounced, saying that the two largest emitter, China and USA, they are really not in the game. Moreover, the China was no more to be included in non-Annexure 1 countries, because at that time it had become the largest global emitter. Okay, so Canada denounced. So that's all about the Kyoto Protocol. Thank you.